Okay, I think we are recording. We're outside, out in the remote laboratory. So there's going to be a lot of noise because it's a work day and the mill next door is currently operating. So you're going to hear a lot of banging on steel and grinding and all that other crap. So get over it. So we have another Stihl FS85. This one is the brother of the one that I rebuilt on an earlier video, and this one is in for service because the fuel tank grommets are leaking, the fuel line is hard as a rock and just falling apart, and the carburetor leaks, and it's one of them non-adjustable ones, and it's a China one, and it sucks. So we're going to start disassembling this whole girl, and we're going to be taking the fuel tank off and the outer cover here and a couple of other bits for easier access, and do some other repairs because this was dropped. So I got got some broken plastic, and the fuel tank is out of place because, like I said, it was conveniently thrown. So I don't know how much you're going to able to see. So I'm going to be taking out the Torx screws for the recoil because the fuel tank has to come out, so I can work on it and reset it. So there's just 3 Torx screws, and there's 1 Torx screw on the front of the blower housing, and then the whole orange cover will come right off. And I'll put the screws somewhere where I won't be able to find them. So that's fine. And I got a whole carburetor service kit from the jungle site to rebuild this one. So I did the same thing to its brother, and it runs fantastic, and it doesn't leak fuel. So all these bolts are all the same. They're all machine threads, so no problem with that. They're all the same length. So we'll just take the outer cover here off and get that out of the way somewhere where I can't find it. And then the recoil comes off. We'll put that out of the way where I can't find it. And then we got a throttle retention screw here. And we'll take the fuel tank out, and we'll just start ripping and tearing and tearing, and the fuel line come right off. No tension on that whatsoever, and the little fuel cap tether is conveniently lost inside. So luckily the kit comes with a brand new fuel cap, so that's convenient, and one of the rubbers is dislodged. And we'll be cleaning this up here because this part is broke. So we'll clean that up before we'll put the fuel tank on. Get some epoxy and fix that. So we'll work on getting the carburetor off now. And it's just easy. All you need is I think an 8mm nut driver or something like that. So the pre-filter is completely trashed. So we'll be changing the air filters for this beast, because this particular machine is well over 25 years old, so it's due for something to go wrong with it. And it's already had several different carburetors on it. So we'll find my nut driver here, wherever I left it. From the last time I did this. Let's see, what is that? That's a 10. There it is. So just two nuts on either side, and you gotta unloosen. Get that out of the socket. Okay, then you got the other outer air cleaner, or an inner air cleaner part, and then we got the little isolator. So the isolator goes on one way. It's got like a top section here, and it's got like a little bend. So it's kind of bent like this, so that the flared side goes outward. And then we got a carburetor itself, and then we'll just unhook the throttle here. So all you do is the throttle is right here. You just advance the throttle a little bit and just pull the cable. And it'll instantly get an erection. So we'll pull the carburetor off now. And one of the gaskets has retained itself, and one's stuck to the carburetor. So sometimes you can salvage the gaskets if you're careful enough to peel it. And this one is seen better days, so luckily the kit comes with a new gasket. So we'll put a new gasket in it, and this is one of them. This is one of them crappy carburetors with no adjustments on it. It's got like a low end. But basically they're useless. So that's that, and then we'll get the new kit out. Here's the new kit from the jungle site. So we'll open that with something completely inappropriate, like a screwdriver. So in the kit, right off the top, we get new gaskets. So that's handy. We get the pre-filter and the regular air filter, so we'll be using that. Get spare primer bulb. Or I should say purge bulb. You get a fuel filter. You get a small section of fuel line. And then you get the carburetor itself, fully adjustable. So that's nice. It's got your high, low, and your idle, as it should be, instead of this bullshit metered crap. And then we get a wannabe Savior BPM 7E. So last I knew it was still running pretty good, so we'll save the spark plug for another day. And then you get a spare brand new fuel cap with tether. So we'll be using that also. So the majority of the items for this particular string trimmer will be used. So that's nice. But first thing we got to do is evaluate this big crack here. So this section here is broke because it was dropped. So we got to do some work on that and clean it up. so we can put some epoxy on it so it doesn't continue to crack. So we need to clean off all the gas and oil and grease, so we'll use something completely unappropriate. We'll use some starting fluid. So it'll be a perfect time to, you know, be smoking a cigarette. So that'll clean off all that gunk. That'll evaporate off, exposing the crack better. So you can see the crack is right here. So there's a crack running down the length on both sides. So we need to clean a little bit more. Get inside the crack. It's amazing how this stuff just cleans everything off. It's good for killing bees too. Okay. That's that. So you want to get the majority of the gunk off of it so that the epoxy can do its job. So that's that. So now the next thing I need to do is to kind of rough up the surface a little bit. So I need to find something completely unappropriate to handle that task. I used to have a knife out here. So let me find a appropriate tool, and I'll be right back. Now I'm back with a file. So what we want to do here is kind of rough up the surface the best we can, and really the only way you can do it is from the outside, really. So we're going to rough it up a little bit. We're going to make the repair a little bit bigger than it should be. Of course, I can't really get on the inside too well, but we'll make something work. So we'll call that good. You just want to give something a little bite to the plastic so that the epoxy has something to grab onto, because it needs something to bite into a little bit, a little roughness to get it to get your best bond. So we'll use some more of our awesome cleaner here. And that stuff just evaporates like nothing. So what we'll be using to repair the plastic is Fix It with JB Weld. So this is plastic weld. It's quick setting epoxy, and it's got a 5-minute set time. So you got a 5-minute working time. So set time in 5 minutes, cures in 1 hour, dries translucent yellow, blah blah blah. Multi-purpose. Will work on most hard plastic, ABS, fiberglass, PVC, glass, vinyl, most other composites. And it says, prepare the surface, clean repair area of dirt, grease, oil, paint, rust, blah, blah, blah. Mix. After removing the replaceable cap, press down on the plunger and squeeze equal amounts into the disposable surface and mix thoroughly. Apply with an appropriate tool, or I should say unappropriate tool, and an even coat. Weld bead and extrude shape as needed, so, you know, massage it, mold it, whatever you got to do. Sets in 5 minutes, cures in 1 hour. Temperature is below 40 degrees and set time is longer. And then right here in the asterisk, it says, for best result, use a detergent or degreaser or starting fluid to first clean the surface, then roughen the surface with a file or coarse sandpaper to provide the best repair. So that's exactly what we did. Not that it matters, because probably nobody's watching this anyway. And conveniently, the packaging has got a little trough here that you can use for your for the first time. And then most likely, by the time you ever need this again, it's pretty much all dried up in the tube. So, you know, it's pretty much a one-time use thing. We'll get it out of the package. We got a little popsicle stick that we can use to mix. And then we'll tear the rest of the packaging off here. So we can use our little trough here. Not that it amounts to much. So we'll get our little popsicle stick out of the way. Then we got our little reusable tips. So it looks like you just twist it off. And then you got your nipples there. So the first thing to do is to get the stuff out to come out evenly together. So, and this stuff's pretty runny, so you know, don't squeeze too hard on this crap. And it's got the familiar epoxy smell. So just go ahead and just squirt some in. That should be enough. You never know. It's easier to make too much and then not enough. So we'll put our little cap on, not that it matters at this point. And we'll save the rest for later if it's still good. So this is a 2-part epoxy, so you mix it up all nice. So it's finally cooled down a little bit. We've had, like, I don't know, a 10-day freaking heat spell where it was high humidity, high dew points, and it was just sucky to be outside, and you can't do anything while sweating, and if you were going to do anything, you had to do it early in the morning before the sun rose above the horizon, so you could get something accomplished every day. But now it's cooled down a little bit. I hope this is the last of the hot and humid weather for the Northeast here, because we had like Florida type weather up here for the last 6 to 10 days, and it completely sucks. Gets up to about 96, 97 degrees, and the dew point is about 70 to 74 degrees, and you come out here and the air is just so thick that you can't breathe. And you're trapped in the house all day long because you really can't do anything. So we'll get the majority of this stuff on the inside here. Of course, it's got a little hole in it, so it's not going to stay in there. So I'll have to turn it over. Something like that. Then throw the rest of it in there. There's a nice little cavity in there. Get a little on the outside, but the majority of the stuff is going to be on the inside here. So this should hold up pretty well because you're filling the inside cavity. So there. Now we fixed it with JB Weld. So while that's doing its thing, we'll move this out of the way. Out in the sun. And then we'll work on something else here, like the fuel tank. So here's the fuel tank here. And we're going to be changing the fuel tank grommets here, and the fuel line, and the fuel filter. And we'll fish the fuel tank tether out of there. And we'll put all new bits in there. So it's easy enough just to rip this crap out of here, because it's 100 years old and it ain't worth the crap anymore. Same thing with this. And we'll just unhook it from the fuel filter that's in there. So that takes care of that garbage. And we'll go ahead and fish that out. So we'll change that. And then here's the fuel tank tether in here. So there's the fuel tank tether. Here's the, that's the new fuel cap. The old one here is here somewhere. Here it is. I think it disappeared. So usually these tethers, they wear out after a while, and you know, it's just a ball, a pressed ball fit, so it takes nothing to pull it out. So we'll get rid of that garbage. And then in the separate kit, you have to buy the kit separately to acquire the fuel tank grommets. So I bought this, this was from the Amazon site too. It's the Hiri. And this is the fuel tank grommet kit. Comes with a bunch of new fuel filters, not that you would never use them. And it comes with a fuel line, the fuel tank grommets, and one too many fuel filters. You'll never use them. So we're interested in the fuel tank grommets here, and the fuel line. And since it's made in China, you have to open up the little holes. So just whatever you got to use to open up the hole, because there's some flashing in the way. So that's that. And now the next project is just a good time to clean the tank if you haven't already done so, to get all the garbage and water out of it, or whatever else that's sitting in there, and then just push these in. Like so. And then we grab our fuel line here, and this is from the last time around when I did the other one. So we'll just we'll go ahead and just cut this in half, and then cut it. So one line is going to be the fuel pickup, and the other one's going to be the purge return. So to make things a little easier, we'll take one end here, and we'll cut a nice long baloney cut here to make it a little easier to stick it in. So looking from the outside, this would be the outside. So we'll make the inner hole the fuel inlet, the main inlet, and we'll just start feeding that in. And then to make things a little easier, we'll put some oil on it so it slides through. So we got some access to some nice used motor oil. Then once you get it started, it starts getting easier. And then we'll start to turn it so that the curve starts coming back out of the fuel tank here. The natural curl of the fuel tank. And sometimes it cooperates and sometimes it don't. So you might need to get a tool to kind of make like a retrieving tool. Currently, my retrieving tool has disappeared. Used to have one out here, but it probably got moved. And now I don't know where it is. Or it's buried under junk. I keep moving the camera. 'Cause I'm a crappy YouTuber. You can just reach in and grab it. Pull it the rest of the way through so you can make it easier on yourself to put the fuel filter on. So we'll make a flush cut here. with my rusty nippers. And then we'll put the new fuel filter on. And usually what I like to do, because this fuel line is kind of stiff and small diameter, is jam some needle nose in the end of it as far as you can, and just open them, with your 2 fingers without ripping it. And that'll make it a little bit easier to put this fuel filter on, or at least far enough where you can get it over the barb so that it's secure. So now it's all the way on. And when you don't think it's already on, just give it another extra, and then we'll go ahead and stick that back in there. And then usually what you want to do is kind of twist it so that it lays flat in there. And kind of push it all the way to the bottom like it is now. That's what's nice about having the daylight, is that I can see that it's all the way here now. So that's good. So when you got it tipped like that, and you get all the fuel out of it. And now with the other section of line, which doesn't have to be, you're going to be trimming this one. You're going to be trimming both of them to fit, really. So this is the purge line, the return, and what's nice about the purge line is you don't have to stick it all the way in like you do with the main fuel line. So get in there about an inch or so, and then you call it good. So that's the fuel lines and the fuel tank grommets. So we'll put our new fuel cap and tether on the fuel tank here. We'll stuff that back in there, and we'll close that up for the time being. And you can go ahead and wipe it down if you want to. And of course, the plastic has yellowed over the years because this thing is over 20 years old, so it's not nice and white, and you can see the fuel line very good, and the fuel lever very good. But it's good enough. It's good enough because it's going to get the crap beaten out of it anyway. So now we'll return to our weed whacker here, and the epoxy should be at least firm enough where we can reassemble this now. So we'll go ahead and we'll get our carburetor out. There's our new carburetor. And we'll get our new gaskets. So and then looking at the carburetor here, you got the 2 fuel lines. This is your purge return, and this is your main inlet. And then your adjustments are always going to face the back of the machine. So that's good. And then we'll go ahead, and our gasket is still on there from when we took it off, so it didn't get destroyed or ripped. Of course, we have new ones if we need them. Just slide that over the studs like so. And then we'll find our isolator here. Of course, we need a gasket for that. That's the wrong one. I need the other one without the holes. And that one disappeared somewhere. So luckily I have 2. Because I did this to the previous one. So we'll put that spare gasket on. because there's two gaskets. There's one with without no holes and one with holes. So the one with holes is going to go on the inside because that's where your impulses from the crankcase are injected and sucked on the carburetor so that the fuel pump can work. So that's that. Put our gasket on, and then we put our isolator on with the bow facing out. And then we put our inner choke air box on, and the choke lever faces outward, just like the rest of the adjustments here. And then the real fun part is getting these 8mm nuts started again. So I got one stuck in there. So usually they don't cooperate very well. So you got to get something to get the nut back out. Gotta find something small enough that fits in an 8mm socket. And usually when you catch a thread, you'll be all set. Then we'll go ahead and tighten these up with our 8mm. And you want to tighten these evenly, because you are dealing with plastic, so you don't want to go ape on this crap, especially something that's over 25 years old. So we'll call that good enough. Make sure our choke lever is free, and then we'll put our throttle cable back in. So there is kind of like a little guide here. There's a slack adjuster on this little guide here to take any slack out of your throttle cable here, and it's got some little ears in it that you thread down into. And then our carburetor little bugger dinger thingy here, it's got an opening for these little lead kippy here. So all you got to do is advance the throttle a little bit, and then just thread the throttle cable in, and just let it find its little happy spot. So that's that. And then we can go ahead and start putting our fuel tank back on. So I took out, there's two rubber isolators on either side here. So I took one out because it was ready to fall out. So we'll jam that back in there. And the epoxy is setting up very nicely. So that is wonderful. Then we'll put our fuel tank back on. So that's that. Then we have our little throttle here. We'll get the fuel lines out of the way. Put them off to the side. Now we can go ahead and put the main cover on and the recoil. So we'll slide the cover over the openings. And of course, since the carburetor is almost like the original equipment, all the adjustment holes are going to line up. And you got to fish it over the spark plug wire and the throttles. And whatever else might be getting in the way. Like so. A couple little tabs in the front you got to feed down through. Okay, that's that. Now we'll put the recoil back on. And there's a fuel tank rubber on the bottom of the recoil. And we'll just start putting our bolts back in. Line up all the holes. Loosely for now, and then we'll snug everything up when everything is aligned. Put the final bolt in the front. Okay, now we'll do the final task. And I should have put the fuel lines before I put the cover on, because you can't get to the purge line. But at least I don't have to take the whole cover off, the recoil and all that other stuff. Okay, we'll take that back off. Get this off to the side a little bit. And of course, you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing, because I can barely see what I'm doing. But if you remember, the way I made the fuel lines is I made the front fuel line the main inlet. So we want to leave just a little bit of slack, and then trim to fit your fuel line. So I'm hooking up the main fuel line, and that will that will be the lower, toward the bottom of the machine. And we'll get a pair of needle nose, and we'll slide that on. And then our purge line, which will be the, for me, the fuel line toward the fuel cap, and we'll measure that out and trim it. And then install that, which is a little bit easier because it's not so congested. Okay, fuel lines are now hooked up. So now we can put our cover back on. Make sure everything is out of the way. Put our bolts back in. Then we can add some fuel. See if she runs. Of course, the other one, when I rebuilt the other one, it started right up. It ran beautifully. And then when I took it to a job, it ran flawlessly, because back in June, when I got it out for string trimmer line, it wouldn't run much past choke. So you had to have full choke just to get the thing to run. So I figured, you know what? Time to change that carburetor. And this one, on this particular one, always leaked when you weren't using it. So it was always leaking fuel, and then eventually it would drain the whole fuel tank. So kind of inconvenient that it would do that, because you would go for it and it'd be out of gas. So we'll find our pre-filter and regular filter, and some of these, like I mentioned on the other video, is that some of them got a this side facing in or this side facing out, but this one is generic, so it doesn't really matter which way you stick it in there. So it's got a nice tight fit, which is very nice. And then we got our little pre-filter here to keep all the small body matter out of there. And these little guys got a hook on the bottom and then a wider hook on the bottom, on the top. So the hook on the bottom, usually hook the bottom first, get it in there, and you squeeze the lever and stick it in there, and it's all set. So now we'll stick some fuel in here. So this is what I recovered, and it doesn't have any water in it or anything like that, so that's good. We'll take our cap off, and it's nicely tethered. Dump our fuel back in here, because fuel is expensive now, so if you can save it, then save it. So I want to be careful that I don't put any stress on that repair while I'm trying to start it. So now we'll reposition you. Get you over here somewhere. Don't know how much you'll be able to see. So we'll purge for a good time. We have fuel in our bulb, because there's no such thing as priming a two-cycle engine. You're purging the air out of the carburetor. So now with any Stihl, if you don't know how to start one properly, the first thing you do is squeeze the trigger and throw your stop switch toward the back of the machine. That'll give you partial throttle while you're trying to rip it, and then your choke is here, so your choke is all the way up. And of course I got a brush blade on here, so you know, spinning metal death. We'll see if she runs. Oh yeah, baby. Okay, we do adjust our idle a little bit because it promptly goes off. So our idle is conveniently a flat blade. So we'll turn up the idle a little bit. First we have to find a screwdriver that fits in that little hole. See how that works for at this point. Still a little too slow. So that's that. Our stop switch is not working at this time. So we'll take the cover back off, make sure I didn't unhook it from the coil. So when I was adjusting the idle, I like to adjust them where it's kind of like fast enough not to engage the clutch, but slow enough to kind of like make the clutch bell ring. So you can kind of hear it like banging a bell. It's kind of like, it's got that ring to that. So it's kind of, I don't know if you could pick it up on the mic or anything like that, but we'll check the wire on the coil for the stop switch. Maybe the stop switch is crapped out too. Not a big deal because you can always choke it to shut it off. One thing I did forget to do is put that little eyelet back on the on one of the recoil screws. So pop that out so the wire's intact. So maybe the switch is on its way out. So just making sure that didn't pop off. So that's not a problem. So all I got to do is just put this little eyelet on something. So we'll make it kosher. So this one, I picked it up out of the trash heap. And this one had the bad carburetor on it. So I put that cheap eBay carburetor on it, and you know, it lasted a few years, and then it died. As you've seen, I replaced it. And then its brother there, that one got a little bit more carnage, where somebody put straight gas in it and ran it, and eventually it froze up. It locked up, and I put a piston and jug on it. It's one of them inexpensive piston and jug kits that you can get on eBay. You know, so for a commercial setting, yeah, I wouldn't probably advise a piston and jug because it probably won't last very long. Or on a homeowner type setting, a piston and jug for one of these beasts is well worth it. And it's well worth putting the money in fixing these. If you find one out on the roadside, because they're highly desirable. Because the crap they make today, that 4-mix and crap like that, they seem to have a lot shorter lifespan, and then they die. So we'll verify that it still runs. Now the switch is working. Maybe it might have something to do with that. Maybe that throttle eyelet is part of the kill switch. So make sure you put that if you have the that eyelet on your throttle cable there, you put it back on the ground somewhere. Otherwise, you won't be able to shut it off. So that's that for this repair of this very old Stihl FS85. This particular one is a brush cutter for various tasks, actually garbage tasks that it's subject to. So thanks for watching. And of course, it's still hot and muggy out, and my hands sweat very bad in gloves, so they're soaking wet. So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you on the next repair video. Bye-bye.